last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
Listen, I've been here long enough to remember when Democrats in judiciary and Congress were great advocates of civil rights and protecting the power of the legislative branch and the oversight that we should be doing over the executive branch, particularly in our case, the Department of Justice. And I don't have a nice typed up speech like we've been hearing from the other side, but what I got is facts. And what I got is recall. And I remember when William Jefferson's office was raided, we had the full affidavit for that warrant, and I read it. And it looked like they had a slam dunk case that he was guilty. But never in the history of Congress had the FBI come and raided an office without going through House counsel. And because of my background as a former prosecutor, felony judge, Chief Justice, I was asked to sit in on the conversations that became yelling matches between House counsel, the White House counsel, and the DOJ counsel and the FBI counsel, and everyone was livid that the FBI came and raided an office, whereas always before, they went through House counsel because our information is privileged. When we get information from whistleblowers, from constituents, they have a constitutional right and, I'd submit, obligation when they know of wrongdoing in the federal government to come tell us so we can do something about it. And now we're being condemned. Look, unlike the Democrats now who are not standing up to the DOJ and for civil rights, look, the head of the DOJ has issued an order basically indicating that nobody in the justice system is allowed to have their constitutional right of having a privileged conversation with their Congress member. That's outrageous. How else are we going to have proper oversight? And so, yes, you already heard mention we have 14 whistleblowers that have talked. In the last week, I got 6 more. This is systemic. It's not just Merrick Garland ordering that if you're in the DOJ, you can't have your constitutional rights. It is beyond that. We have somebody being demoted because he refused to make his field agents sign affidavits that contained lies that were prepared by the DOJ, people that weren't even at the incident. And then he got demoted, and his career's in jeopardy. And that was last week I heard about that. And last week we had a report from people that were making a protected disclosure under 28 CFR Part 27 that on the 7th floor of the Hoover building, they're not protecting the SCIFs, and that phones were being taken into the SCIF. Well, we know you can't do that, and yet here at the top level of the FBI, where our most important secrets are being discussed and reviewed, they're allowing phones to go in that can be hacked, and our enemies can find out everything. And so that was reported last week. First of this week, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, had his deputy report, that's a lie. There are no violations of the SCIF. So this week, I got 3 more whistleblowers saying, that's a lie. And one of them saying, I'm on the group that has to come in and make sure the SCIF is secure, and it wasn't. They were openly carrying phones. The director carried a phone into the SCIF. They don't care. So I would say, based on what we now know, that the FBI was paying Danchenko, a Russian lackey, for information, and they refused to provide that. It had to come from Durham. After 6 years, we get the truth. We wonder what else is being done politically to go after Republicans and the civil rights of people and the rights of this body. No, the civil rights of this body are being violated, and we need somebody on the Democratic side to step up the way I did when William Jefferson's office was wrongly searched. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
To strike the last word.
Gentlelady's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to this completely unnecessary request for resolution because the affidavit is present. We have it. You've already introduced it for the record. And what I find alarming, despite all the alarm we hear over there, is that they're not talking about what you can read in the affidavit. The rules, the laws that are alleged to have been broken or possibly likely broken, the narrative in the affidavit, that which is not redacted, you notice the folks on the other side of the aisle don't want to talk about. The finding of confidential records at Mar-a-Lago, 15 boxes returned in January after a months-long inquiry by the National Archives. They finally get 15 boxes with many, many documents, Presidential Records Act documents, never should have been at Mar-a-Lago, classified documents, never should have been out of their protected spaces. I really find it sad that the American public would have to hear the false arguments being made here. After all, this is a unique committee of mostly lawyers. We studied and prized the rule of law, not the rule of power, the rule of petty. I lost, I don't want to leave the building, and 2 days before I do get forced to leave, I ship boxes and boxes of materials to my resort home in Florida. I almost feel sorry for the folks on the other side of the aisle, but I don't. They know better. They know that they are misleading the public when they talk about a raid. This was not a raid. This was sadly a required seizure. It was a search and seizure authorized by law after 20 months of negotiating with the president. And he said, there's nothing to see here. I don't have any classified documents. I don't have any presidential records. And then he says, okay, Obama took millions more than I took. How are those two things to be reckoned? Oh, I declassified all of them, magic wand. Oh, I returned them all. A lawyer even wrote to the National Archives and DOJ saying, no, nothing here, until they finally had to go in and get them and find highly, highly classified documents, among other documents. It was a legal search and seizure. The folks on the other side of the aisle know that. And what is at stake here is obviously the rule of law, obviously the protection of national security interests, the preservation of the Presidential Records Act, which any president should revere and abide by, but also what has become. You've heard some of the statements by members on the other side of the aisle, inciting people to be against the FBI, that something is wrong with the FBI. Again, how are these misleading and dangerous words coming from lawyers sworn to uphold the rule of law, not to go along with a president who long flouts the rule of law, and now we have evidence that he tried to subvert the rule of law? I hope we go back to speaking the truth. The American public and this democracy is owed nothing less. I yield back.
I hope we go back to speaking the truth, too.
Oh, little J.
For what, the gentlelady yields back. For what purpose?
Gentlelady, could you yield? Just for a moment.
Gentlelady yields.
Just for a moment. Let me thank the gentlelady for yielding. I wanted to raise this point about life and death. It is so easy for the Republicans to now bring in immigration, suggest that they're not talking about defunding the police. They are talking about defunding the police, but more importantly, they're jeopardizing lives with this kind of rhetoric.
You get 5 new minutes?
First of all, they join, and I hope to explore this a little bit more, they join their own leader who has discussed President Trump attacks on the FBI, given the most horrid suggestion of their lack of patriotism. But I'm going to give this one point. In 2021, a top secret CIA memo warned about troubling numbers of informants being captured or killed. The state secrets Donald Trump took from the White House included information from human sources, the same individuals who are disappearing at a rapid pace for reasons we have yet to figure out. And so it is my point that we are jeopardizing lives, and we have